Welcome to the Executive Speaker Series today. My name is Diane Single. I'm Executive Director here at the Graziadio Business School. We have two wonderful guests with us today who I will let them introduce themselves shortly. So as you all have participated, last week was our inaugural event. Today, I want to make sure everyone knows there's a Q&A and a chat box at the bottom. So as people have questions throughout, we're going to have some great conversation today. So feel free to enter your questions into those sections. We'll monitor as we go and try to get as many as we can. So your questions are the most important. So those are the ones we want to get to. One of our guests unfortunately had an emergency today, so David Unger will not be able to join us. So we will reschedule him for a later date. But I am actually going to start by letting our two guests introduce themselves. So I will start with Erica Wertheim Zohar, and then Anna Brandt will then introduce herself shortly thereafter. Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So nice to be a part of this incredible conversation that is first and foremost in our retail landscape right now. My name is Erica Wertheim Zohar. I am a consultant to luxury brands, and I help them with their marketing strategy, but I do it in a very interesting way that is not a normal way that most people do it. So I can't wait to kind of dive into that and give you a little scoop on that. My background is I had one of the largest private label manufacturing brands in Los Angeles, and I sold my company and kind of retired, and then decided that I would start writing again. And so I was working with Town & Country magazine, and I was their West Coast contributing editor. Now I write for Forbes too. And with that, I also was able to blend my love for entertaining. So I was doing a lot of the parties for Town & Country on the West Coast, and that led to what I'm doing now. So it's funny how doing things that you organically love and are authentic with actually can lead to a whole other world and a whole other industry. So I went from making t-shirts to throwing parties and helping with marketing. So anything's possible. You can pivot at any time. So that's my story.
Thank you, Erica. Well, wonderful to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Brandt. My day job is to run guest experience and experience design for Dorchester collection. It's a collection of 9 beautiful, beautiful hotels within Europe and United States. Here locally, you probably know the Beverly Hills Hotel and Hotel Bel Air. And actually, that's how I met Erica. Erica is one of our guests. So it wouldn't be, you know, there is nothing better to speak about luxury. There's nobody better to speak about luxury than one of our guests, who has been a loyal guest for many, many years. I just recently graduated from Pepperdine's Doctorate of Business Administration degree. So yay, I made it. And I will be teaching a class shortly. I think some of my future students have even showed up because I've seen it on Sakai, and I look forward to meeting you in person.
Excellent. Well, thank you. So I think this offers an opportunity here to just ask a question to start off with, you know, what does luxury mean to you? I mean, we talk luxury, it's this general terminology, but what does that mean to you?
Erica,
I'll let you go first, Anna, since I went first last time.
Okay. Well, you know, luxury, obviously, I spent my entire career studying luxury and understanding what it means. And it's such a really complex phenomenon. It's something that it's very difficult to define because it means different things to different people. I define it as something that is very scarce, something that is difficult to obtain. It could be a thing, it could be a product, it could be an experience. It could be a relationship that you would have with someone, or it could be access to something that is difficult to obtain. So to me, luxury is more of a state of mind, and it is more about pursuing something that is scarce and difficult to obtain than that kind of probably mostly seen as opulent way of looking at luxury, something that shines, sparkles, it's very in your face. That is not what I would define as luxury.
Interesting. I would say, it's interesting. I was really taken by the question. I looked it up on just Merriam-Webster just to find out what is actually the definition of luxury. And it's exactly what you said. It's a condition, they said, of abundance and great ease and comfort. Something added to pleasure or comfort, but not absolutely necessary. And also an indulgence in something that provides pleasure, satisfaction, or ease. What really was interesting to me with that was that it didn't mention money at all. So it's real that when you think luxury, you think, oh, it's got to be expensive. But and actually, I think luxury is making someone feel comfortable and at any level. So it could be that great soft t-shirt that makes you feel great. And, so I think it's really interesting when you actually look at the words of defining luxury, what actually luxury, and does not mention money at all. And I think that's a very big take-home value.
Excellent. Thank you. It's really interesting because we are in a very unique time, as we all know, with COVID in the world. And I know everyone's probably tired of hearing the words COVID every single time we go, but for the luxury market, it was going a certain trajectory. And, there was probably a lot of impacts in very different sectors, as with every sector. So how has the luxury industry / market been impacted by COVID?
Okay, I'll start with this. One of my clients who I love so much, and I am also a client of theirs, is Gaganow. And what's interesting is, who knew that a pandemic one of the biggest parts of the pandemic was redoing our homes. So the kitchen industry, Gaganow is part of the Bosch and Thermador family. And when you look at people's kitchens, you see that that's the number one thing that people want. They want that more than a diamond ring. They want that new refrigerator. They want that new stove. Everybody wants to feel good in their home. I think, when we're defining luxury, I think it's not only the handbag that we thought of or the designer clothes, but it's actually what we have in our home. And stepping up, from maybe the okay stove to I want the real deal, because I'm actually spending more time in my home. And instead of getting the TV that's okay, I want the bells and whistles. And I think that this pandemic has really shown that people have shifted kind of their definition of where they want to spend their money. Travel is also something that I see going forward. People are going to be spending a little bit more money to have a better hotel, better experience. I think the YOLO moment of after this pandemic is what am I saving it for? I think that's what's happening too. So, I think luxury has now expanded into many more markets than what we traditionally had thought of luxury to be.
I would definitely agree with Erica. Is post-pandemic, I would say how we actually project luxury has certainly changed. And that is very much related to how we display and how we project our status. So I agree that a lot of people have reevaluated how they want to spend their time and how they want to invest what they want to do in their life as the post-pandemic experiences. And luxury in that sense became very, very personal. And I agree with Erica, there are so many different shifts that are happening in the industry within the travel. I mean, what we are seeing is, business travel is not anymore as something that people want to do. Before pandemic, the more you could travel, if you could go to 10 countries in 2 weeks, you would be projecting that status of success, and I made it. And what we're seeing right now is actually people who are projecting higher status don't have to travel for work. They only travel for fun. And actually, David is not here, but David mentioned something really interesting to me. He asked me, Anna, who do you think it's the number one competitor for business and first class travel? And, obviously it's certainly, the answer is not that obvious. So I kind of stood back and thought about it. And he looked at me and said, it's Zoom. And he's absolutely right about it. People who actually don't have to travel for business. And, before pandemic, people would say, well, come to New York for two-hour meeting. And we would jump on a plane and spend 6 hours for 2-hour meeting. Now it's not necessarily something that will be moving forward. So I think within the industry, travel will certainly be impacted. And I agree with Eric. I think it's more about that leisure travel that you want to do it for yourself versus when somebody snaps a finger and asks you to go across country or across continent for a business meeting. In the hospitality industry, what I'm seeing is people are certainly scared still. There is that sense of, I want to go somewhere where I know, people that I trust, people that I know will take care of me, people and companies that have really good practices. But it's certainly coming back big time.
Excellent. And I would love to give a little shout out to Dorchester Collection, just because I am a customer. I live on the same street as the Bel Air Hotel and have watched how they've handled them and their customers. And if there's anything I can tell you about the luxury market, just being a customer of theirs, is they took care of every single one of their employees from day one of the pandemic all the way through. And when you look at the labor shortage that we're having right now, they have never compromised any of the level of service in any of their hotels, because they have such an incredible staff that is so loyal to them, because when times were tough, they were, Dorchester was there for all of them. And I can tell you that is not the norm at all. So that's another reason why I really feel comfortable going there. First of all, it's all the same people I've known for years who are serving us and servicing us. And I think that's a very important thing to mention in the luxury space, is to stay consistent with your level of service, with your product placement, everything should be consistent. And I think that's going to be challenging for the luxury market with the labor issues that we're having right now.
Thank you, Erica. And just to add something, Erica wrote a wonderful article about that in Forbes when we were protecting our jobs and all the employees. So thank you, Erica, for doing that. And to your point, we're definitely seeing that the relationship with the staff makes people feel comfortable and secure to come back. And then when I said at the beginning what luxury means, sometimes is that just relationship, a person that sits in the polo lounge and you see them back and you're happy to see them. That's luxury.
Great. Well, thank you for that. We were having our conversations prior to coming to today. Erica, you had mentioned the term that you embody, which is the affluencer. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by it and why it's so important for luxury brands to pay attention to the affluencers? What does this all mean? What is all of this?
It's an interesting term. It's one that's a little cringy, but at the same time, it does kind of define a little bit of what I do. So all the companies that I work with, I am an actual customer of theirs, meaning I was their number one fan, love their product, and I stand firmly behind representing them and working with them and getting the world to know about them. I've actually turned down companies that wanted to work with me because I didn't feel confident that their services were going to actually pan out with my friends and the people I know. And I don't feel like that they would have held their end of the deal on really providing a top-notch level of service and product for them. So I think that's the definition. You see a lot of influencers out there right now, especially on Instagram and TikTok and everything. And they basically, it's pay to play. So you give them money and they'll say your product is great, or go stay here, or wear this, or eat this. And I think the consumer is, especially at the top 0.5% of the world in that luxury market, is much smarter than that, and is not going to listen to a 25-year-old sitting in a Bentley saying, hey, buy the Bentley. I think it has to be an authentic Bentley owner, and who says, listen, I love my Bentley so much, I'd love for you to look to see all the other Bentleys that are out right now, and make it in an experience that is no pressure, it's all informational, and it's a fun experience, something that is worth their time. In my experience with putting events on and having people be a part of something, I just know how much I treasure my own time. So I look at, when I put an event together, that it has to be so extraordinary and something that they could not do on their own, or something for them to leave their home and actually spend time with me, because their time is worth a lot. And I think I've done a pretty great job of doing that because people talk about it afterwards and they tell that was the best dinner, that was the best experience. And we make it very immersive. And we bring people around them that I am the common host, which everybody knows, but everyone doesn't know each other necessarily. So they trust that I bring great people to that together, and the product comes, you know, in the conversation maybe once, but it's mainly a background conversation. They're immersed in the experience, and I think that is this guerrilla marketing that I've been doing, which I started about three and a half years ago, has really proven to take off and has been successful with the companies that I work with.
Great.
And I can echo to that because I was actually part of one of Erica's beautifully executed, I wouldn't even say marketing, it was just so organic that you totally became not only addicted to what the product that you were promoting, but most importantly was so organic. So it was Erica's birthday that she had at the Beverly Hills Hotel a few weeks ago, and I was lucky enough to be invited. And actually how it manifested itself, there are amazing, very powerful who is who of LA that attended this birthday because that's Erica's.
You could say it. I turned 50.
I wasn't going to.
I'm owning it. I'm 50.
50 and fabulous. It was really a fabulous group of very, very powerful individuals, especially, well, women. And, you know, for her birthday, everybody was bringing Erica a gift, but as we were sitting down at the table, there was a gift for us that Erica brought to all of her attendees. And I thought that was beautiful. We were all excited. We all sat down and said, there's a gift for us. So we opened the envelope, and Erica was very kind to get one of her clients to gift us, which is LAX Private Suites, to gift us the experience for our next journey on LAX. So you can imagine so many women that couldn't have everything are certainly cherishing something like this much more when it was a gift from Erica on her birthday. So I would say that's a beautiful example of being an affluencer, getting the right product to the right people at the right time under the right context. So it was brilliantly done.
Thank you.
Well, happy birthday, Erica. So it's a little belated, but we have some birthday wishes coming through from the audience as well. So thank you. You know, we have a question coming in from a student, Kayla, who is wanting to start her own luxury jewelry brand post-graduation. So she is an MBA student. And do you have any advice for luxury startups in the post-pandemic era?
Who do you want to go?
Okay.
I'm happy to answer that because I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 13 years old. I used to make scrunchies for the hair, and then I had a student discount card business. I've been an entrepreneur at heart forever. And that's why pivoting for me was actually very natural, because I do believe that everything has an expiration date. So there's businesses that are great for about 10 years or 5 years, but the industry has changed. And if you don't change with it, time to move on to something else. And my advice when it comes to, because I've spoken about entrepreneurship quite a bit through my many years of existence on this planet, I will tell you that I would not overly invest in anything. What's great that you have right now is the internet, where you can, you know, you can actually see how great it is, and you can do a whole visual storefront for yourself. So the expense is not as crazy as it was 20 years ago. But I think you just have to keep your prices high. I'm not a big fan of discounting. I don't think discounting is ever a very good thing. I believe in selling quality rather than quantity, especially in the luxury market. And I think get your product in authentic hands of people who actually like it and who can speak on their behalf of how much they love their product. And try to aligning yourself with hotels like the Bel Air Hotel and the Beverly Hills Hotel. Maybe see if you can pitch the person in the store, if you can do a collaboration with the store at the Bel Air or the Beverly Hills Hotel. Things like that. I would just say collaborations are great, and try to align yourself with luxury brands that already have that that reputation of being luxury, so that already people understand that you're at a certain price point and everything like that. That's my advice.
If I could chip into that, I would agree with everything that Erica said and add to it. It's important to have a story of what it is that kind of drove you to launch something like that, whether it's jewelry, whether it's coffee, doesn't really matter. What's your story behind it, and kind of what motivates you to contribute to the world with the product that you are intending to do. I think every luxury product has to have a really, really good story. The craftsmanship, the quality of ingredients that are required to do whatever you're doing. I'm not sure what kind of jewelry, absolutely have to be top notch. I mean, I think there was a great example of Beyonce doing Tiffany commercial and then figuring out it was a blood diamond. You know, things like that are so important, going back into the root of how you source them, because eventually it will come out. And to Erica's point, align yourself with the client state of mind. Don't worry about how you're going to scale it. Do the right clientele and they'll scale it for you.
Great, thank you. You know, going into some of your commentary and your background, Erica, where people, not just the luxury, but that you're an entrepreneur and that you've been an entrepreneur your whole life. So one of our students, Joe, has brought up the question of, do you think entrepreneurs are born or made? And do you think someone who is not a naturally born entrepreneur can learn to become one?
That's a really good question, Joe. I appreciate you asking. I'm a little biased because I actually do believe that they are born. I can tell you I have two amazing kids. I'm actually at Parents Weekend in Austin right now, visiting my daughter who's a sophomore here. And I have a son who's a senior at Princeton. And I can tell you that I just know what I was like when I was their age, and I was out trying to make money. And you know, I had side businesses while I was in school, and it's crazy because I'm not very good at knowing exactly how much I have in my bank account. I do it for the rush of, I love coming up with a product or an idea and then selling it and seeing if people are going to buy into it and like it. And when I was in the clothing business, it was unbelievable. I was walking through the airport I'll never forget this. It was the first time I actually launched my first collection. And I was walking through the airport and I saw two people wearing head to toe. This was back in 1996. So people would wear head to toe the same outfit. And I couldn't believe it. They had spent their hard-earned money on my stuff, which I couldn't believe. It was the biggest compliment. So do I think people are born? I think from my own experience, I believe that people are born to have that entrepreneurial spirit. And it's also some people are born to be fearful of everything. I believe entrepreneurs are not fearful of much. And we're okay with failing, which is also a trait that not many people have. I think you're born with that trait of being able, I think daredevils are the same, people who are athletes are the same. They have this drive that not everybody has. So I think entrepreneurs are a very special group of people. I belong to an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization. And what it is, it's basically a majority of us are entrepreneurs. There are some CEOs who are trained and paid, but I will say that the majority of us kind of have this spirit of excitement and adventure and what's next. And, we have this fire behind us, and not everybody is. I don't know if everybody's born like that. But thank you for that question. Amazing question.
Back to the luxury market. Another student, Kia, he's another MBA student, has a question for both of you. Do you think luxury can apply to every product or service category, or do you think it's limited in that space?
Well, I can start. I'm not really sure. Thank you, Kia, for a question. If I understand that right, for every service or product category, I think that, luxury requires branding. Yeah, you need to have a really strong brand in order to be considered a luxury, whether it's a product, service, experience, product-driven goods, whatever it is. Whether one brand can have multiple categories, I would say yes or no. I guess I've seen good examples being executed. I've seen not so good examples being executed. Personally, based on some of my personal experience, my work experience, and the research, I find that if you take a look at the hotel industry as an example, the best luxury brands in the hotel industry are the ones that are either independently owned, so they have one hotel only, like a Little Nell in Aspen or the Breakers. They're just a small, tiny little hotels that are usually driven by the owners behind them. And those that have multiple brands might have different conflicting priorities. Yeah. So if you have many categories in your umbrella, you might have some conflicting categories. It might be difficult to do them all with the same level of intensity. So can luxury really go in every category and every brand? Probably yes. It really depends from my personal experience. What do you feel luxury is for you, and what is your starting point?
I can speak from the clothing industry because we would make a t-shirt for someone who would sell it for $10 and make a t-shirt very similarly to someone who'd sell it for $120. So I would say one of the most interesting people at least from the clothing industry that I know of, that's been able to do this is Michael Kors. If you look at Michael Kors, you go into a Michael Kors store, right? You've got his Diffusion brand, which is the MK. Then you've got his Michael Kors brand, which is also $2,000. And you've got them hanging literally next to each other. So I think he's done a phenomenal job of really positioning himself where he can make someone feel like they're buying something in a luxurious store, but they have such a huge myriad of price points that they can pick from. They can buy a perfume for $60, or they can buy a sequin dress for $3,000. So all within the same umbrella. So I definitely think it's possible. I just think you have to be very clear and concise with your messaging. I think that's where it gets really tricky with luxury brands. If you're trying to be everything to everybody, sometimes you'll be nothing to nobody. And I think that is the biggest problem with not staying clear and concise with your messaging. So I'm a big fan of staying very narrow and deep, stay very clear, very pointy, as they say, on what it is that you're delivering, regarding if it's a service or a product, that it is exactly the expectation that the customer wants. But hey, like I just read the definition of luxury, it doesn't have to be expensive. So, you can walk into Target and buy an incredible eyeliner that makes you feel luxurious because it was maybe a couple of dollars more or had better packaging or something like that. So yes, so I do believe it can be in every category, but it just needs to be really well done in the messaging.
Excellent, thank you. Along those lines, we have two questions, one from Michael and one from Brendan, that have some similar ideas about the branding aspect within this space. So Michael is asking about advice you have for someone hoping to sell or market a niche product. And then Brendan is asking about exposure. So what is your strategy on gaining exposure and status without caving on your vision and your brand? It's that dual nature of exposure, but keeping true to yourself.
Sure, I can start. Luxury brands, you have to be very, very careful what you do. So I think with luxury, most of the times you want to answer a question, what not to do. It's very easy to get exposure. It's very easy to do the wrong exposure. You are always in the target of the media. Our hotels and our brand is always in the target of the media. Everybody wants to collaborate with you. Everybody wants to have some piece of you. And that's great if you are doing it in a which is authentic to your brand with individuals who can just make your brand better. So, but at the same time, I always say strategy is defined as what not to do. And when you do have such great following, amazing guests, a good reputation, overexposure can be a turnoff for so many, and wrong exposure can be a turnoff. So I would say that, again, no different how I always approach luxury with scarcity. Be very, very clear what your brand is. Be very clear what your brand is not. Truly define who you want to, who do you consider your most valuable customers? And don't always look at them based on the money they spent. We have changed our strategy in terms of definition of who our valuable customers are, and it's not the ones that spend the most money. It's actually the ones that we want to be proud to be associated with, like Erica. We want more of Erica. We want Erica everywhere. We want to be with Erica all the times because she is the one that is the right customer for us, and she makes our brand stronger. So when it talks about marketing exposure, I would say be very, very careful, very defined, and be very protective of your brand.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Anna. That was so kind. I'm a big believer of your brand, so it's not that difficult to be a good customer of yours. That McCarthy salad gets me every time. So I think I agree with everything you said. I would just add that I think social media is such an interesting way to kind of really research and see what luxury brands do to keep to keep their brand up to par to what they want and keep the messaging straight. It was interesting. If you look at a lot of luxury brands and through the pandemic, you won't see a mask anywhere. So it's very interesting to watch how so many through the social media, how none of these brands really talk about the pandemic. So we have a huge pandemic happening worldwide, and you won't see a mask on any social media of any luxury brand. And I find that fascinating. They want to control the environment in their little space, and they don't want to have a mask. Beverly Hills Hotel is a perfect example. Right when the pandemic happened, I'm like, I really want a Beverly Hills Hotel mask. Can you make some masks? She's like, we're not making masks. We want people to come, and we want them to feel like once they sit down and they eat, they can have that little moment of forgetting about what's going on around them. So that was a very interesting thing that I learned from Anna. And then I kind of reflected on that and saw that that's happening across all luxury brands. So that was really interesting to me.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Abdullah, who's another student. He's an MBA student first year. He wants to know what new strategies come out of the pandemic for the hotel industry. I mean, there's been such a major shift with how people are behaving now. So what do you see as new in the near future versus the longer term? Because we're kind of still in that crisis mode at the moment.
So what we're seeing is, obviously customer behavior, everything is just dictated how the consumers, how our guests behave. And the need for being very, very flexible, the need to bend rules that you previously potentially had are coming up to the forefront. Everybody wants to have a different type of event, and safety means different things to different people. Comfort means different things to different people. What I don't like, what's coming out with the pandemic in luxury hotels, is when companies use COVID for cost cutting. Yeah, so that is kind of, to me, almost insulting to a consumer that, room service doesn't open until 8 because of COVID. No, it's because you're cutting cost. So that really is something that I'm seeing a lot that is happening in the hotel industry, is cost cutting due to COVID. And I think that hotels are getting away with it for now, but I don't think that will happen in the future. Consumers are too smart and they understand. Certainly, as we talked about, shortages of the staff and ability to cater to the consumer with the level of experience and expectations they have. So I think companies have to be very careful not to get greedy right after the pandemic. Demand is huge. There's a lot of demand. If you want to book a wedding, you probably have to go 1 year out. But at the same time, being smart and thinking long term when it comes to those decisions. So for instance, we in our company, we decided not to sell every room because we necessarily have all the staff to provide the experience that is required for a brand such as ours. So we would rather not sell, not oversell, not seat somebody than have a inferior experience. And I think those are some tribal and trialing moments that luxury brands are going through right now. You know, even if you go to Hermes, it's not a great experience because you have to stand in the line. You can't make an appointment unless you know somebody. You got to go through the back. So those trialing moments are really the points of truth, what people will feel after things go back to normal. And I personally know that I will not forgive many of the brands in the ways in which they treated me, made me stay outside, you know, like one-on-one experience. No, it's not. You're cost cutting. That's what you're doing. So that's what I'm seeing is the decisions that we will make now that will affect us in the long term are being judged by our consumers.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. One of you probably know this DBA candidate, Jolie Gutentag. I'm probably a friend of yours, Anna. I'm not sure if you know each other.
Dr. Gutentag.
Doctor. Okay. She's graduated as well. I never know. So forgive me. I didn't give you your doctor title when I introduced you either. So congratulations on that as well. She has a question about what do the trends towards dematerialization and simplification mean for the luxury in the future? So this would be for both of you because this crosses so many industries.
I'm happy to start with that. I'm going to refer back to my client Gaganow because I'm a big fan of theirs. They're a company that's been around for over 300 years. And so it's all about quality. It's a German-based company. And the reason why I refer to them is because their business has never been better. And I think it's because people want quality. They don't want to keep buying that stove and then 5 years from now having to replace it. People are willing to spend a little extra money to actually get a product that is going to last for 30 years. And also where the service level is there, where they can call and someone will be at their house to fix it right away. So I feel like, with that, the default is sustainability, that we're making less of those things. I think people are sick of buying junk. And I think out of this whole pandemic, that was something that seems to resonate across all industries is enough with the fast fashion, enough with things, we want to recycle. I mean, look at Real and a lot of these, luxury vintage brands. That's a hot market right now because people want to recycle what they have. And I think the more that we can do that, the better. I think telling people to be eco-friendly and conscientious is not easy. You have to show by example, and you have to make it so it's easy for them to do in their natural life. And I think the car companies have done a great job of being able to still be luxurious, but also sustainable. And I think we're going to see definitely a trend of that going forward in all industries.
I think, Erica, you're speaking Jolie Gutentag's, Dr. Gutentag's language because her dissertation was in circular economy. So there it is. From my perspective, it's very similar to what Erica said, is buying less, but buying more quality, actually significantly less, getting rid of the clutter, getting rid of things that you don't necessarily need, and being very, very conscious about how much do you invest in material things that actually hold you down. And that was actually one of the biggest revelation of my research, my DBA research, of how does one project status in this new world. And it's certainly less about material possessions, less about ownership, much more about having that freedom to move from place to place. You still want to have a nice house, but you probably don't need 17 houses. And another thing, what I saw is a trend called downshifting. And what downshifting really means is that people who have the ability to afford luxurious products, so they have that economic capital to buy expensive things, they're actually getting rid of the Rolexes and replacing them with Swatches. They're getting rid of the Ferraris and replacing them with Wranglers because they don't necessarily need a luxury product to show who they are, what they can afford, and project their status. So that downshifting is very, I would see it's very evident in every single sphere of the market, whether, you know, you're wearing ripped jeans or you don't really care how you dress. And I mean, you can see at the Met, some people show up pretty much in trainers and in sweatpants. So it's whoever has more power actually rejects the standards that are imposed on us from luxury brands.
I'll also throw in something too. Security. I think people are I think they want to be a little bit more anonymous too, and not have that gold Rolex while they're walking down the street in New York. I think an Apple Watch is like, I blend in, you know, and it's normal. I think exactly what you said. There's a high-low kind of situation. It's like, I want to act like I want to hike, but I also want to make sure that I'm staying in a luxurious, tent that costs $3,000 a night, but I actually want to do that hike up the mountain too. So there's a lot of high-low. I think adventure is a huge, huge part of being luxury right now as well.
Great. Well, we know, as we've talked about luxury and in the earlier definitions of luxury, we talk about the scarcity and things being harder to attain. And are there any such factors that make the products more difficult to attain and make them more scarce? What does that mean to you?
Well, in the news today, it was all about chips. Chips seem to be very, very hard to find. So I'm religiously a watcher of CNBC. One of my ideas of creating wealth is also taking whatever money you're making and put it in other things and other businesses as well. So I'm a big player in the equities market, and it's been an amazing run this past, 8 years. And I will say it's interesting. It's really a very big problem that these cars specifically that they were talking about today can't run because a chip factory is closed. So I think we're going to have major issues with little things not being available for big things to work. And that will trickle down to a little bit of chaos in a lot of different industries too.
Yeah, and from my perspective, that scarcity, it's certainly somewhat resource driven, as Erica is saying, and that's really good because it really makes us realize the complexity of the supply chain and complexity how things we took for granted for so many years that, you know, you can get a new car every 3 weeks, or every 3 years. Now you can't get a car. There's a waiting list to get a German car. But I think that the whole scarcity phenomena should stay, and brands should really embrace it more, especially if it has a story with something that is sustainable, that's something that ethically sourced, that we can appreciate moving forward. You know, I don't think we appreciated the supply chain that we have to get anything we want at any point of time. But now we are kind of thinking, oh, well, you know, if this doesn't work, how am I going to get something? And you appreciate things more.
100%.
Right. Brendan has also, our student has also submitted another question about what is the key to luxury experiences? He was saying a big example. He was looking into the Rewalt Bigra for the Porsche. So to you, what is the key?
I can tell you, it goes down to your neighborhood cafe that you go to all the time, and they know the table that you love, and they know, oh, are you going to have the eggs in, lightly cooked with the side of bacon, and just knowing what it is that you want, having that personal touch, personal relationship. I think because we're in such a digital world and you're used to sitting on the phone and waiting and falling asleep, listening to a recording, hoping to talk to somebody on the other end who's working in Indonesia to hopefully take care of your problem. It's so nice to be able to have that personal connection. And I think this pandemic was we appreciate, like you said, we appreciate being that supply chain. I think we also appreciate just having a personal relationship and personal touch and seeing each other and hope, embracing each other. And I feel like that's where luxury can really happen at any moment is that person. To me, it's that personal touch. And I think that's why I love what I do so much, because I love bringing people together and I love getting people to make connections on their own. I'm a connection junkie, and I truly love that I can make connections for people, and hopefully they'll take those connections and pay it forward and make connections for other people. So yeah, so that's my take on it.
From my perspective, one of my dear mentors taught me these 14 words to remember, and that's kind of is the building blocks of any luxury experience, which is remember me, recognize me, anticipate my needs, and give me what I want on time. And when you think about it, remembering that somebody is your customer and recognizing them as to for who they are, what's important to them, understanding the context of their interaction, understanding what is important to them at that particular moment. It could be different next day, but really, really recognizing that, anticipating what they might want, and then giving them what they want on time. And I would add a few more things is, to Erica's point, access to something that didn't have before. And it could be a relationship. It could be a person that they haven't met, and all of a sudden you introduce them, and then the friendship happens and the new business opportunity occurs, new personal friendship. And one thing that I'm seeing that's absolutely critical for any luxury experience is ability to bend rules. Ability to be able to listen to the customer, listen to your client in a ways in which that you're not going to do something illegal or immoral, but you do bend some of the rules for them to show them how important they are to your brand. And that in turn makes them feel very, very appreciated, and one belongs where they're appreciated.
Absolutely.
One of our students, Gloria, she wants to ask about how do you overcome, she wants to talk a little bit about the Chinese luxury brand market. And there's an impression of poor quality if a company is a new startup within that market. How would you recommend that you overcome that impression and really get your brand out there?
I could really speak to that because we manufactured everything in LA. And I will tell you, the Chinese manufacturing is the best in the world. They nail manufacturing. Their sewing capabilities, the quality of their merchandise, and the ability to be able to produce in the volume that they do is unmatched, completely unmatched. We as a world are dependent on China, no matter what anybody says. Every single thing we touch in a day, at least, I would say at least a dozen things came from China. And I give them so much credit for creating a monopoly, basically, on producing amazing product in every industry. I mean, in every industry. I think we do a great job in America, too. I think our labor issue and the talent of our labor is a real problem when it comes to the manufacturing capabilities. I can just say that as a manufacturer and through the eyes of a manufacturer. But, you know, I really hope that we remedy our relationships with China, in my opinion, because they are a really important factor in how we go about our day every day. We need them. We absolutely need them.
Oh, great, thank you. And then one more student question, and then I'll pose one last question out there after that, is from Amelia. So she is president of one of our clubs, is Net Impact, which focuses a lot on sustainability and ethical business. And she cares a lot about inclusivity. And she wants to know, is luxury inclusive? And if so, or if not, could you expand on how, or how do we break the barrier if it's not?
Well, I can say, you know, from my perspective, I guess it depends on what side of business are you looking at. If you're looking from the employee and culture and just being a good corporate citizen, I think luxury is very inclusive. Our hotels have more than 200 nationalities that work for them, from all different backgrounds, from all different economic levels. Actually, hotel industry is a blue collar industry. Yeah, so it's a very interesting thing. I think it's very, very inclusive. I'm not really sure what industry is more diverse than hospitality industry when it comes to individuals that work and serve you every single day. At any point of time, you can see, you can hear, you walk around the back of the house of the hotel, and you can hear different languages, different cultures. The food that we serve in cafeteria is always in a different nationality. I mean, people take so much pride of their heritage, of their background. So from that perspective, I think luxury is very, very inclusive as an employer.
Great. Excellent. Okay, and I have one last question. This is a bit of a selfish plug on our part, Anna. So you're teaching a luxury class on luxury experience design. I know that it's coming up for some students who are in our programs in session B for a full-time MBA. And can you tell us a little bit more about what they can expect and what the course is a little bit about?
Absolutely. So thank you for all of you who signed up. More pressure on me. But yes, so my kind of the concept behind the class will be understanding the concept of luxury, the phenomenon of luxury, but more importantly, focusing how do you design experiences? So how do you design those experiences that are targeting towards the affluent consumer? And I hope that we will be able to have a real case study, a real challenge provider that will give us a real business problem that we can solve as a class and as a group. So it will be a combination of understanding luxury brands, and then marrying that with design thinking methodology. So if you are thinking about Silicon Valley, Steve Jobs, IDEO, design thinking, Tim Brown is the one actually kind of that put that on the map for us. So we'll be marrying those two concepts.
Thank you. And before we close out, are there any last tips for those trying to break into this luxury space or are budding entrepreneurs? Any last tidbits of information that they should kind of needle and think about over the next development time for them? No?
I'll step in. There's one thing that I always sticks with me especially when it comes to luxury. Is you can look at the price of one thing. So let's say you want to go to a meal. I'll just use a perfect example of you want to go get a burger, right? So you could go to Shake Shack, which is great. Or you could go to the Polo Lounge, which will cost you probably double. I would say double of what Shake Shack would be. But the experience in that, just that difference in price, so we're talking probably about $14 is, or let's say $14, maybe a little more, but you get some really good fries with that, is you have an experience. And so I would say, don't look at the cost, the full cost of something. Look at what the difference is if you were just going to get something regular and something great. So something good to something great. Don't look at the overall cost, but just look at that difference in price because you have to pay it anyway. And treat yourself, to go to the Bel Air, the Beverly Hills Hotel, and just have a drink outside. And even if it's an iced tea, it's a $9 iced tea, but you sit there and you're taking it all in. So anybody can experience luxury. I think, if that's anything we come out of the pandemic is luxury you should spoil yourself, spoil your family, and quality over quantity in so many ways. We'll help the planet by doing that as well.
And from my perspective, thank you, Erica, for wonderful words about the restaurants that we have. One thing for me is I remember when I moved to LA, I drove by Pepperdine, and to me that represented luxury and education. I said to myself, what world excuse do I find myself to go back to school at Pepperdine? Because I think the Malibu campus, the Calabasas campus, what we have at Pepperdine, to me, that's luxury. When I drive there, I always feel like I'm driving into a resort. I'm not driving into a school. The quality of education, the community, to me, that was probably one of the utmost luxuries I have ever experienced in my life. And the luxury of gaining education today. It's so important. So again, it really depends how you define it, what it means to you. For me, one of the biggest luxury in LA was actually going to Pepperdine, and I'm so happy that my dream came true.
Wonderful. Great. Well, I would like to thank you both, for Dr. Anna and for Erica. So thank you both for joining us today, and thank you to our audience. Thank you for being here today and for the great conversation and the great questions. Our next Executive Speaker Series, October 22nd. So everyone keep a lookout for that. So thank you both. And thank you everyone for participating today.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Bye, everyone.